Hello, I'm Marian Arrowsmith, and with us today we have Mr. Victor Doucette, who was in St. Tammany for, I think he retired with 33 years experience. He's been a teacher, an administrator, and after he retired, he's kept in with the education field, and we're going to hear lots of interesting stories from him today. And welcome, Mr.
Welcome,
Doucette.
Marian.
Glad to have you. You grew up in the Slidell area, didn't you?
All my life, Marian.
What was it like when you were growing up?
Well, I would say it was kind of a wonderful experience that influenced, if I might say, in the living in Slidell. Country boy, if I might use the term country, the rural area of Slidell. A lot of work to do when I was a little boy. Went to a school that was a one-room school, and left there, I think it was in 7th grade, when the schools were consolidated in Slidell. So
the one-room school had 1st through 7th grade?
1st through 6th grade, and of course the 7th grade I went into Slidell.
Okay.
Okay, and that was St. Tammany High School at the time.
So Slidell was a little bit different when you were growing up than it is today?
Quite a difference, you better believe it.
What were your summers like?
Summers was really great because we had a lot of cattle. Well, we had an open range in that area, so just about everybody in the community had cattle, and of course they would actually go out, pick up the calves when they needed a calf for to kill, and that was part of our job as boys to do that. We had horses, so we'd go on the open range, and I'm talking about going as far as Lacombe, Louisiana, as far as Pearl River on horses just to get cattle.
So the range was that wide open?
The range was just that wide. That's how wide it was. Because of the fact at that time, it was just more or less like a farming community. And that's what influenced, and I will tell you about that, what influenced me to go into agriculture, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, go right ahead. Go ahead and tell us.
Well, I wanted to just to tell you a little more about the background as far as for being in the rural area. When you ask me what do we do, it's kind of like what the kids are doing now on for TV and all of the things that they do. Back then, our joy was to get on horse, ride horses, probably the whole weekend, just having fun, playing cowboy and that kind of thing. Okay, but other than that, that's what it was like.
What area of Slidell?
I'm closer to Lacombe actually than I am to Slidell.
Okay.
The real rural area of Slidell. I would say I'm about 1/10 of a mile from the Lacombe line.
So you still live in the same area where you grew up?
Still living in the same area. I was born in that area. I moved only the next door because I'm now living on the property that my uncle owned at that time. Okay.
Tell us more about the school. Where was that?
The school actually was provided by my great-grandfather. At that time, we didn't have a school.
And what was his name? His
name was Victor Doucette. So the school was named after him. So I attended Doucette School up until my 7th grade.
And where was it?
This was located pretty much like maybe 1/10 of a mile from my house.
Is the building still there?
The building is now gone. But it was close to the bayou, right on the bayou, because during that time, my great-grandfather's business was operating schooners. So his home was right on the water. That's my great-grandfather's home was on the water. My grandfather's home was on the water.
Now, which bayou?
Bayou Paquet. Okay, that's P-A-Q-U-E-T. That's the way to pronounce it. But it's Bayou Paquet. So that's pretty much how it was there. So we walked to school there. And then after we left there and the schools were consolidated, I had to walk pretty close to about 1.5 miles just to catch a bus. Okay, and from there into Slidell.
To St. Tammany.
To St. Tammany.
Well, what was it like? Tell us a little bit about what it was like to go to a one-room schoolhouse where you had
Well, 1 through 6. In that one-room school, number one, just about everybody were relatives. So it was quite an experience when I left from the rural school to go to St. Tammany, because then, you know, it's really a situation where I'm saying, hey, look at all of these people. You got to understand that at my age at the time, I probably had gone to Slidell maybe twice or 3 times, and that was with a horse and buggy. Okay, I can remember going with my father to pick up a cabinet that was sent, that he had ordered, and came to Corolla's grocery store, and they had to go to Corolla's grocery store to pick it up, and we went by horse and buggy. And I remember going with them just to hold that cabinet down in the buggy. So that was quite an experience.
So what were the roads like, and what roads were there?
All gravel at that time.
Was 190?
190 was gravel too.
Okay.
But I didn't know anything about 190 because I was always on Bayou Parquet. I guess you would have to say after I got into the high school, then we traveled the 190. And again, that was after my father was able to then get a car. And I can't really pinpoint exactly what year that was that he was able to get a car that was actually handed down to him, if I might say, from a brother. Okay, I might let you know that I had 7 brothers and 1 sister.
Wow.
Okay, 3 of my relatives or my siblings were in New Orleans most of the time that I didn't even know they were brothers. I had 1 sister, 2 brothers that was in New Orleans, but didn't even know that they were my brothers because of the fact, again, you have to understand, traveling back to New Orleans at that time, I don't think there was any real way to get there but by schooners. Okay, I think what is the Wilson's Bridge that we have, that they were then able to cross to get to New Orleans. But
so where were you in the ranking of the siblings?
Last.
You were last.
I
You're
was
the baby.
the last, and that's why I didn't know my brothers, because they were working over in New Orleans.
So much older.
And they were working in what they called premises at the time. They're actually working for people who had businesses in New Orleans, and they weren't able to come home unless they were coming back to Slidell. So this is the way it was.
Who was the teacher?
My teacher over at
the one-room schoolhouse.
At the one-room school, I remember going to school with Mrs. Margaret Cousin. We had Mrs. Genevieve Ferrier. And the teacher that sent me from the one-room school to Slidell was Mrs. Carolyn Garden Robichaud. At the time, she was Carolyn Garden, and of course, then she married a guy named Robichaud. But she was my last teacher. And she's still living, by the way, too. I see her quite often. But Carolyn was the one, my teacher. Now, the school went on, the Doucette school went on, I think, like 2 or 3 years after I left there. And I think my nephew, but he was the last one, I think, went at that school. And I can't pinpoint exactly what particular
So about how many
year.
students were in the class with you?
Oh, I would say no more than 20, but they were all different grades because it was a very small, it was just a one-room school. And of course, the family were very small too. That was they were providing services for at that time.
What about air conditioning back then?
No air conditioners. No air conditioners. They had the little outhouse, and that was about it. We had running water. I might say that one of the things that I enjoyed was the fact that we had cattle. We milked cows before going to school. I was able to take my pint of milk from school in a jar and place it under the running water, and I had cool milk to have for my lunch.
Because the water came from a well.
The water came from a well. It was a flowing well, and it was constantly flowing, so the jar was tight, so it just floated around here. No one ever touched the milk. It was just, but that's what we did.
Well, tell us about lunch and recess. What was
Lunch and recess was a ball. We had fun. This is the time that we played a whole number of games. At the time, football was not even in our mind because we didn't know too much about that, but we certainly did play some baseball. Okay, and you also have to remember now, during my young age, we didn't have TV. We had a battery radio, and the stories that we heard were all, you had to imagine and visualize what might be happening in these particular stories, but you were able to get a lot out of listening to the radio.
Do you have any favorite story that you remember?
I think Mr. and Mrs. Nart was way on the inner sanctum when hearing the squeaking door, and of course we were able to hear the fights that was going on when Joe Louis was actually fighting too. So those are pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Other than that, we didn't pay too much attention to any other thing that was going on. We would hear our parents sometimes talking about the war and what's going to happen during that time, and that was even before World War II. We know something was going on, but we really was not into what was really happening. Okay, and so I guess when it came to the bombing of Pearl Harbor, then everybody said, "Hey, something is going on." Then, and I think that's when our interest really started flowing into what was happening at that time.
Mm-hmm. But before that, you just enjoyed your childhood.
That is correct. You see, because from 1941, you're looking at a little boy. What do you know? Born in 1933, and this is 1941,
mm-hmm.
and you're not too much into what is happening in the world,
right.
Especially if it's by radio. Now, I'm sure the kids hear a little more because of the fact that it's just bombarded all the time with what is happening.
Maybe too much.
Maybe too much.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was more or less left to our parents, even though it wasn't that thinking at that time, but it was left to the parents to what was going on.
Okay, you finished 6th grade in the one-room schoolhouse, and then you
mm-hmm.
walked 1.5 miles to catch a bus,
my bus. Mm-hmm.
and went into Slidell and
Right.
St. Tammany. What was Slidell like then?
Slidell was quite an experience. I really did well as far as for mixing with the kids. When I said mixing, it was the fact that these were not relatives now. These were people that I have not been, involved with or before. It was a little frightening from the beginning, but after getting adjusted, everything went well. We had no problem. Mr. Brooks was our principal at that time. And I would say that we did very well, and I played basketball. I really wanted to play football, but because of the fact that I lived so far out of town, I had no way to get home if I would play football. Of course, that was we practiced in the afternoon. So I wasn't able to play football, but I did practice basketball during the daytime. Okay, they had the schedule arranged for us to play basketball, so I did manage to play on the basketball team.
And then how did you get to games and back?
The games was usually daytime. We never had a night game at St. Tammany. In fact, our gym was built, I think the year I left St. Tammany, 1951, was the year that we got a gym at St. Tammany High. We played outdoors. Our sport was all outdoors. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how did you get interested in education?
Now that is a situation that came about by my agriculture teacher. We had a shop teacher in agriculture, and of course the fact that the man that was my teacher at that time got us involved into different contests. I love to sing, so we started a quartet in the agriculture group. So we were able to travel to different schools with the quartet, okay? And because we were doing so well, in fact, we went all the way up to Atlanta, and that was quite an experience. Of course, this was during my junior and high school year. We were doing so well, according to our teachers, that we even was given time to take off and go to these different contests that they had, which was the National New Farmers of America program that was going on. So we sang, and we received some awards for doing this. And then when I talked to Mr. Hayward, he told me, he said, Doucette, you should start thinking about what you're going to do in life, just like that, which I had not thought about that. It was something that we didn't have a guidance counselor. It was nothing about what are you going to do.
So Mr. Hayward was your
Mr. Hayward, my
agriculture?
agriculture teacher, and he said, you know, I want you to go to Southern University. He graduated from Southern University. Here again, young man, not knowing too much about universities. It's a shame to say, but that's the way it was. We had no guidance. So I looked into it, okay. So I told Mr. Hayward, yes, I think I will try to go to the university. When I say try, it was because I had to convince my parents. My father was a laborer working at the shipyard, making very little money. And when I approached him with the idea of going to college, it was like, oh, where's the money going to come from? So I told him, Dad, if you would just pay my tuition, I will do the rest. I went on and after talking to him about this, he said, well, I don't know. He said, I got to talk to Mom. And so he did talk to my mom. And then I went back and I told Mr. Hayward just what was going on and what a difficult time I'm having to convince my parents that I wanted to go to the university. And Mr. Brooks came in and he said, you want to go to college? I said, Mr. Brooks, I said, I know nothing about what is happening. I said, but I would like to go. Okay, Mr. Hayward have given me some information, and I would like to try. And he said, come on, let's go. And he grabbed me by the hand that evening and brought me to my house, and he talked to my father and mother. So he convinced them, okay, and that was the deal. My dad was going to pay the tuition, and I would pay whatever other whatever need I needed. And so I went to the university. And I was able to get a job at the university as an infirmary boy. They call me infirmary boy. So I was to carry food from the cafeteria to the infirmary for those who were ill in the infirmary. I did this for 4 years. And so my father paid the tuition. I went on and took care of my needs, and that was it.